How can sustainability become a central part of corporate strategy? Well, here today with us on INSEAD Knowledge to tell us is Paul Kleindorfer. He's the Paul de Bruhl Professor of Sustainable Development here at INSEAD. Good to see you again, Paul.
Thanks, Shelley.
And our guest, Christoph Lueneburger. He is the leader of the sustainability practice at Egon Zehnder International. Good to see you.
Thank you.
You're here for the Sustainability Roundtable that the Social Innovation Center has created here. Of course, Paul is a big part of that too. So let me throw out a first question to both of you. The financial crisis and some of its revelations of incompetence, in some cases actual criminal activities, I've kind of have regulators up in arms. The public is screaming for radical transparency. How can you then develop sustainability along with corporate strategy in this kind of an environment?
In the context of sustainability, what I think that means is both developing a position, not necessarily the position of any external stakeholder, but one's own position as a company on sustainability that is consistent, credible, legitimate, and that in fact can be announced rather publicly, both to shareholders as well as to others who may have an interest in influencing the company. So that's point one. And the second is to having the metrics and other paraphernalia of management, if you will, at one's disposal so that one in fact can respond credibly to questions that are raised by these stakeholders.
There's been historically a sort of bifurcation between public perception and operational reality. And the idea of radical transparency at its core, I think, is about aligning those two. No longer traveling in an area where you claim to do things that in fact you're not, but at the same time making sure that you're publicly credited to do those things that you've signed up to do.
But ClimateGate, timed as it was just before Copenhagen, seems to have left in its wake a lot of skepticism. Do we now have a better chance of moving towards sustainability? Do you think public confidence is there?
Sustainability can survive very well without climate change. Climate change happens to be an important factor in our lives, and but you don't need to believe in it. You don't need to pursue it or think about who's causing it in order to pursue sustainability as a core thread of your strategic fabric. The real drive has been coming from big corporations. If you think about the Walmarts of this world that have really begun to engage in this as a commercial strategy, that has changed far more and far more quickly throughout their supply chains, which are vast and global, than anything we've heard out of Washington or Brussels or any other place.
You mentioned Walmart jumping onto the sustainability bandwagon. When a company that size takes on something like this, it de facto becomes somewhere in society. What's needed at the board level? How do you find these leaders?
If you think about a traditional board director, there are a number of attributes that come to mind. They have to be strategic, they have to be results-oriented, they have to be good collaborators. And those things will be true pretty much irrespective of what kind of board it is. But in the context of sustainability in particular, probably the dimension of leadership, the competency, if you will, that is going to be particularly prominent is independence. Is the ability to act ethically and to speak and to risk something in speaking to the issues that you think need to be addressed.
Paul, I would also think there's a good deal to be said here on private-public partnership and trying to sort of combine maybe board decisions, corporate strategy with the way regulations are going.
We are going to have a dialogue that goes on between labor and business and households and others who have a huge stake in fact, how this happens. And it's got to be this engaged dialogue that recognizes this huge need to integrate public and private forces in finding the right mix so that business can do what it can do in market-based regulatory fashion, and that indeed where we need regulations to assure a level playing field across the planet and within countries and regions, that indeed we have the right kind of dialogue that will move us to a place where this can happen efficiently.
How is it possible to make money in a publicly listed company where every 90 days you have to create a financial miracle, whereas sustainability takes a longer point of view?
If you're in the business of selling, let's say, lip gloss, and you're known to be someone that is socially responsible and environmentally active, that is a reflection on how your brand is perceived. And that reflection will also be mirrored in the margins that you can charge for your product. More interestingly, I serve on a board with a CEO of just such a company that makes personal care products. And what he told me is he found that in several of the recent promotions of graduates he's gone after, he's succeeded in bringing on the very top talent for quite a bit below what they would have gotten somewhere else. And the reason is that they were genuinely attracted to the brand, to the values of this firm and how they reflected their own.
Let me end by asking you both to look into your crystal ball. Let's just assume that in about 3 years the crisis will have been absorbed over. We're going forward, please. 3 to 5 years. Where will we be with sustainability?
I'll answer that to start with from INSEAD's point of view, because I think the business schools of the world have a major and important and growing role to play in responsible integration of market-based instruments and the business enterprise as one of the most important organizational innovations of the last 300 or 400 years. So we have a tremendous responsibility to get the right message, to do the right research, and to put this in front of our executives and our students in a way that leads them to make a lifetime of right choices in this matter.
On a more practical level, I think if you, Shelley, or any of us will go into a store in 3 to 5 years, we will be much less surprised when we see a teenager or a tweenie interacting with their cell phone to find out on the fly what's true about some product they're about to buy and making a decision right at that point about either putting it back on the shelf or not. And the echo of that moment back to the boards of major companies who sell that product will be tremendous and will, I think, lead to big changes.
I'm going to say maybe in 3 to 5 years we should all reconvene, but I have a feeling the answer will be very obvious by then. But thank you very much, both of you, for your insights and for being with us on INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.